Well, hello again. This is Pastor Frank Lewis, and welcome to another opportunity to find out about relationships under the name Relationships Revealed. I want you to know that this is the project that God gave me to write 7 books. You can go back a few weeks ago and actually hear the overview that I did at that time for Relationships Revealed. Going to be doing 7 books on relationships, and it's all based upon this book right here. This book is the book that I wrote called The Key. This book is the foundation of all of the material that I'm going to be talking about when I talk about relationships for marriage, relationships with children, parents for children, relationships with singles, preparing for marriage, relationships with the relationship with God, relationship with yourself, relationship with money, and relationship with your body. So those are the 7 areas, and it's all based upon this book. You can get this book on Amazon. I suggest that you get it. It will be the foundation for everything we're doing. Now, as you know, if you've been following with me, that this whole series starts off with the whole marriage relationship and how to have a marriage made in heaven on earth. Because Jesus, it was said by Jesus, on earth as it is in heaven in the Lord's Prayer. So, on earth as it is in heaven. We're supposed to have heaven-made marriages right here on earth. But there's problems, and there's a considerable amount of problems that we're going to talk about a few today. But before I do that, I want to let you know that there is a website that I have for relationshipsrevealed.org. And relationshipsrevealed.org, if you go to it, you will see the list of the 7 books with their titles, and you will be able to contact me to learn more, or you'll be able to contact me if you want help. Those 2 buttons are there, and you can push them, fill them out. If you give me your phone number, I will actually be able to get in touch with you or one of my staff. And so I just want you to know that we want to help you. I want to help you. I can help you. I'm a relationship expert, and that's why I wrote the book, and that's why I'm doing these 7 books. So last week, we looked at one of the real root causes for problems in all relationships, but certainly in marriage, and that is what Satan does to children to cause them to have unresolved emotional pain. Unresolved emotional pain is the root of all the problems of marriage. It's the root of all the problems that we ever have in any relationships. You might recall that I did say that God created us for relationships. So we need to be aware of that, and we need to recognize that the whole plan of God is that we are supposed to be in relationships. Well, the relationship that is at the key to all the relationships is marriage. And so we started out recognizing that Satan causes unresolved emotional pain. Because he's the God of this world, he can cause parents to trigger, and they will end up bringing pain in some form or fashion to their children. They may not want to, but they do because they actually are pushed by Satan, by what they believe, false beliefs they have, and it triggers them. So they take it out on their kids, and that causes unresolved emotional pain. Why is it unresolved? Because the children they grow up to be adults and have never resolved the pain. Because most people don't even know that they have the pain until they get older. Once they get older, they start to realize, oh, my life isn't working real well. But we talked about Satan being the cause and the root, and the real issue is unresolved emotional pain. That causes real problems in marriage because it causes marriages to have the problem of needy love. If I have unresolved emotional pain, then I'm going to need to be loved. God wired us to need love, but I'm going to look for another person to fill that need. And when I do, I put myself in a position, or when you do, you put yourself in a position when you have a need for love that the other person now goes into a one-up position and you go into a one-down position. That's not a good thing. You don't want that for sure. And so we talked about that. We talked about the fact that unresolved emotional pain can be looked at like a hole in the soul. And so that hole cannot be filled by another person of the opposite sex as an adult, because it's a hole that came from childhood. Didn't get the love, didn't get all of the nurturing, didn't get the things that you needed to get. I didn't get the things I needed to get, so I had to get them in a different way. And we're going to talk about that weeks down the road as to when we talk about how to solve these problems, how to actually end up with not having emotional pain. And so what happens is when the person is one up or one down, what happens is that the one down person was not created by God to be in a one down position. So what they're going to do is they're going to resent being in a one down position. The reason why they're in one down is because they need to be loved. And so when a person, a man or a woman, needs to be loved, what's going to happen is they're going to get taken advantage of. And that being taken advantage of, I've seen it in so many situations with a lot of women that got taken advantage of by men because the women needed to be loved, so they went into a one-down position, they got taken advantage of. It can also happen in the opposite way. It can happen where a man ends up in a situation where he needs love, so he marries a woman that's going to end up being one up, and she's going to take advantage of him and use him. Everybody, you're going to find out as we go through all of these different problems that arise about marriage, we're going to find out that everybody's really, the spouses are looking to each other to fill the hole in the soul. They're looking to each other to be loved enough so that they can end up with the love they never got when they were children. And so that's a problem. And it's going to cause a marriage that's not going to be satisfying. It's not going to be loving. It's not going to be life-giving. It's not going to be a marriage that is a heaven on earth marriage. It's not going to be. What God planned is not going to happen when we have unresolved emotional pain, when we have a hole in the soul, and everybody does. Nobody gets out of this because of the fall. And that's the reason that Satan does such damage to children. And he's very good at it. He knows what he's doing. And what we have to do is we have to learn how, and I'm here to help you with this, how do you get this unresolved emotional pain resolved? How do you end up becoming more, really the bottom line to it is you become the person God created you to be. So you can do what God created you to do, because we all have a purpose. God has a plan for all of our lives. But Satan's job, and what he's done so well, is he has caused children to grow up with their hole in the soul, with their unresolved emotional pain, and so they end up not being the people that God created them to be, and they get in marriages looking for the wife or the husband to fulfill their need for love. Most of the people go into the marriage looking for their needs to be met. You may have wondered, why do opposites attract? Do you know why opposites attract? This is a download. Why opposites attract is because they're unhealthy. They're not healthy. Opposites don't attract if they're healthy. You know, if I'm needy and I'm needy of love and I get with this woman and she ends up, you know, in a position where she's, you know, fulfilling my needs, what ends up happening is I actually make her my mother. Well, that's not a good thing. That's not going to be a great marriage. Why? Because of my neediness, my brokenness, my unresolved emotional pain. So what happens then is that the opposites attract. Perfect example. My wife was a rescuer. My wife, who's now in heaven, was a rescuer. She rescued people. She met other people's needs. She couldn't take care of herself. She couldn't meet her own needs, but she met everybody else's needs because that's how she got the love that she never got when she was a child. So I meet her, and what ends up happening is after we did dating for a while and it's looking really great that we might get married, well, I'm thinking to myself, oh, this woman is going to meet all my needs. She's going to be my all-nurturing mother. Now, I didn't totally see that completely at that time, but that was part of it. And I want to tell you something. That's not a good thing because she absolutely decided after getting more and more information that she didn't want to be my mother. I've asked scores of women, do you want to be your husband's mother? And not one has ever said yes. So that's because of what happens when opposites attract. And we're going to go into that in a couple of more weeks. We're actually going to go into why that is, why opposites attract in more depth. We're not going to do that today, but we are going to go into more depth. But right now we're going to talk about a word you may have heard, a concept you may be familiar with, but I'm going to go into a little bit more depth because I'm going to talk about codependency, but I'm not going to talk about it just as a clinical type of thing. I'm going to actually talk about it based upon unresolved emotional pain, based upon the needs of the man and the woman that are not being met, were not met in childhood, were not met by parents, so they think they're going to be met in marriage. And a lot of marriages, way too many marriages, are in a codependent, the spouses are in a codependent relationship. Now, what is codependency? Codependency is a concept of, just think of the word co and dependent. I'm dependent, or you're dependent, on another person to meet my needs. What are my needs? My needs for love, acceptance, approval, my needs for different things, my needs for sex, my needs for all to be able to be affirmed. Those are needs, okay? But the problem is that I don't have enough emotional healing. I haven't dealt with the unresolved emotional pain or gotten the hole filled up in my soul. So what do? I look to my spouse, just like I did. I look to my spouse to meet my need. That's codependency. I don't have enough internalized core belief in who I am to meet my own needs. So therefore, because I didn't get enough love to have that internalized view and position of being able to get my own needs met, so I look to another person to meet my needs. I look outside of myself. And what happens is as soon as I do that, I put myself in a position where I'm very, very needy. And I put myself in a position of being dependent on another person. Well, as soon as I'm dependent on another person, then what I've done is I have now put myself in a position where I've got to do things to have that person meet my needs. I've got to, instead of just having love, I've got to extract love. And one way to look at it that's explanatory, that will help you a bit, is think of a dog and a tick. A tick sucks the dog's blood, okay? Well, one person in a codependent relationship is the dog, and the other person is the tick. Now, it can flip dog to tick, tick to dog. But the most important thing is that both spouses are trying to get love from the other spouse. Now, what will they do to get love? Well, they'll manipulate. They'll extract. They'll set up situations and circumstances so that they'll walk on eggshells, and they'll set up these circumstances and situations so that they get what they need, but not frontally, but under the radar, so to speak. And what happens is in this codependent relationship, there is not real love. See, real love is based on a choice. I choose real love. I choose you, not because I need you, but because I decide that I want to be with you. See, there's a big difference between need and desire. And the big problem with codependency is I don't think I have a choice. I think you are my choice. And when I think you're my choice, then I act like you're the one that's going to meet all my needs, one spouse or the other. And the problem with that is that the spouse that thinks that they can't get their needs met themselves, they're not integrated enough in one way to think about it, then what's going to happen is they are going to then put themselves in a position where there's not love. There's manipulation, there's walking on eggshells, there's trying to please the person, there's all kinds of different ways to look at this, and the problem is that it's not going to bring satisfaction because there's no real love. It's just a way to do what we think we need to do to get what we need. And it's selfish. It's not life-giving. It doesn't give life. It sucks life. It's like the tick and the dog. And eventually, the wife, if the husband's, like I was doing this with my wife, is that if I'm sucking and trying to get love from her, sucking blood from her, so to speak, life from her, she's going to get worn out and she's not going to like it. And eventually she decided she wasn't going to do it anymore. And then we had some real adjustments and some real problems, because now all of a sudden I had to find out, how do I get unresolved emotional pain healed? Well, that was a good thing, because we eventually got some real love, or some love in our marriage, but not the way that I really see marriage made, heaven-made marriage on earth. I know now, having been married twice, what not to do. And I'm trying to help you to know what not to do. And one of the things you don't want to do is you won't want to look to your spouse to give you the love you never got when you were a child. I'm going to tell you the honest truth. This is honest truth. You cannot. The behavioral scientists tell us you cannot get the love that you didn't get as a child from your parents from the person of the opposite sex or in a marriage. You cannot get that need met, or the hole filled in your soul, if you will. You can't get that met by another adult person of the opposite sex. It just can't happen. It will not happen, because it's a childhood wound. It's a childhood deficit. It's not an adult deficit. It's a childhood deficit. So you have to have knowledge about how to get the lack of love and all the different things that happen. You've got to have an understanding of how that's done. And we're going to talk about that. That is going to be one of the major emphasis. How do we do that? But we can think about it this way. Think about Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve were naked. They weren't ashamed. They had an incredible relationship. And so they decided they wanted to be more than they were, so they ate the apple, disobeyed. And what does Genesis 3 tell us? Genesis 3 tells us that God, asked Adam, where are you? Of course, he knew where he was, but he asked him. And what happened? Adam said, I knew I was naked and I felt ashamed, so I hid. Well, I'm going to tell you something right now. That is happening every day in marriages and in all relationships. Why? Well, because Satan caused pain to us as children. It's unresolved, so it just continues with us. And what happened is we hide because we don't want any more pain. Who wants more pain? I don't want more pain. You don't want more pain. But we hide. What do we hide? We hide behind a mask and a facade. We're not the people that God created us to be. And so what happens is we also do something else. When we have pain brought on by parents, caused by Satan, we have unresolved emotional pain. What happens is we are not the people that we were created to be. But not only that, we end up having fear of more pain, and we have shame. Shame is a belief that I'm defective. Well, if I believe I'm defective, then I'm not going to be able to get my needs met. So I'm going to have to then be somebody I'm not. If I'm somebody I'm not, and I bring a mask and a facade into a marriage, it's not going to work. Many times I've heard so many scores of people tell me that after they said I do, everything changed. Well, that's because the best foot forward was being used by the spouse, okay? Be it a man or a woman, because they think they can't get their own needs met, whether it's even financial or any other way. So the truth of the matter is we are enacting every day what Adam and Eve did. But here's something else we do that Adam and Eve did. When God said to Adam, did you eat of the tree? Adam said, yeah, the woman you made, the woman you gave me, she's the one who made me do it. So Adam blamed God, and then Eve blamed the serpent. And you know what people do? People in codependent relationships blame each other in marriage, in other different codependent relationships. They blame each other. They can't take responsibility. Because if I take responsibility, what happens is that I am not going to be able to just continue to get by. I'm going to have to take responsibility for hurting you or causing you a problem or whatever, and I'm going to have to grow up. I'm going to have to start to change. And people don't like change. They resist change. So what happens is that I end up in a position where I blame. And how many people that are, or even your spouse or anybody else they just can't take responsibility. It's too hard for them to take responsibility. Well, if you can't take responsibility, then you're never going to change. If you're not going to change, you're going to have a marriage that is far less than God planned for you. And that's very sad. I had 2 marriages that were far less than God planned for me, and I'm not interested in having a third, okay, that God is less than God planned for me. So the reality to this is that I've got to recognize I have a problem. I hurt you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Or I have a problem because I need you to give me the love I never got. So we've got to get to the point Adam and Eve never did, but we've got to get to the point where we can actually know that we can be healed. We can be healed. It's so vitally important for you to come out after you see this, for you to know that weeks in the future, I'm going to be telling you how to get healed, how to get the hole in your soul filled up. I have people I'm working with every day that are getting the hole in their soul filled up. God gave me the revelation of how to do this. And that's the book. That's why the book is so vitally important. Well, I want you to know that codependency will rob you and keep you from having a great marriage. It will cause you to walk on eggshells. It'll cause you to be one down. It'll cause you to manipulate. It'll cause you to have problems that you don't need to have when you look outside of yourself for somebody else, in this case, your spouse, to meet your need. No spouse wants to meet the other person's need without getting their need met. So now we have codependent. You know, you meet my need, I meet your need. You meet my need, I meet your need. But it's not based upon love, it's based upon need. See, love is a choice, as I said. Need causes manipulation and everything else. So I want you to really have hope. I want you to realize that codependency is not what you want in your marriage, and you don't have to have that in your marriage. The real issue we're dealing with here, when we boil it all down, is we can't trust that we can get our needs met from Father God. And that's the real problem. But He is good, and He will meet your needs. I can tell you that, and I can promise you that. And when He showed me how to get my pain resolved, I decided I'm going to help other people get their pain resolved, because I started having the most incredible life I could have ever experienced, and you can have that same life too. And that's what this is all about. So no more codependency in your marriage, and you're going to be very, very happy